silly can you get? Yeah, yeah. How silly can you get? Ooh, yeah.
Why hello there, dear viewer. It's been a while. I haven't done one of these for years because I've been waiting for something to answer a wish. A big tall wish. One for the angels. And through a blessed act of the almighty Gorsh, darn it, I have received such news. From Author2 of all places. I am excited to talk about this, for Daniel Greene has been a subject on this channel for quite a while. When it comes to his books, he proves that even the worst writing is able to find some type of audience when it involves feminists and gays. From all the networking he had to do, pretty much hanging out with only women, it was inevitable that he would have his own Me Too moment. What makes this delicious fart cake have the most scrumdiddlyumptious sweaty icing is that he gets his own Me Too moment just mere moments after making a video about the whole Neil Gaiman bathtub scandal. If you're not familiar with Neil Gaiman and his controversy, he is a popular author who actually knows how to write, and he's mostly known for writing stuff that Redditors can't shut up about. A little bit like Brandon Sanderson. Only the big difference between these two is that Brandon Sanderson wants the Mormon church to have trans pastors, while Neil wants to have BDSM parties and play Find the Rubber Ducky with a babysitter. After being accused of sexual misconduct by 8 women, Neil made the big declaration that seems to be the main ace in the hole for all these fantasy male feminists. He said nothing bad happened because those sluts wanted it. Which leads us to today's theme, the subject of consent. But before we get too far ahead, we must know who Daniel is, especially if you haven't heard of him, or if you just want a recap of his, medical career. Starting his channel during Daddy Trump's first presidency, Daniel has spent about 80 years talking about fantasy books and reviewing them. His main rise to fame was caused by his talks about Wheel of Time, which is really big on Reddit for some reason. Personally, I don't understand the hype revolving around it. I find something like the Wheel of Time as a great waste of time, and never bothered with it. But after this initial push into the algorithm, thanks to his constant activity on Reddit, Daniel didn't really catch another viral hit until he talked about classic fantasy versus modern fantasy, which led him to trend chase around modern fantasy and young adult fantasy in general. This direction led him into an audience that was mostly made up of feminists and gay people, which he was fine with since that is what he prefers. Over time, Daniel started to talk about his politics, revealing that he's a socialist. He's all about the LGBT. He has 2 carpet-munching lesbians as mothers instead of normal parents. And surprisingly, he's into chicks, using the term bisexual to keep the back door open. After all these metrosexual red herrings, we got a gift that was way more spicy and far more fascinating. At some point after college, Daniel got a girlfriend, who's actually kinda hot in a Leia Foreman kinda way. Dorky, big nose, blonde hair, blue eyes, Aryan blood that is pure for the fatherland. Pristine vajola. I don't know how anyone can mess this up or why anyone would want to mess this up. I paint this relationship in a pretty picture because what happens next is quite ugly. In one of the most unfortunate cases of adultery, in comes a homewrecker who goes by the name Naomi King. But looking at her channel and looking at Daniel's is like observing 2 different planets. Sure, Naomi is a writer as well, sort of, with a non-fiction and a fiction book. Her fiction book, Azheek, The Rising, is about an LGBTQ fantasy world with a murderous protagonist that is totally not a self-insert female. The non-fiction book, called Advice for When You Feel Like Shit, is about how she has Asperger's, borderline personality disorder, OCD, drug addiction, and went through several cases of child abuse and sexual assault that resulted in intense PTSD. I don't know about you, but I think she's got some screws running around and there's a bunch of marbles on the milk carton, if you know what I mean. You go to her room and there's like a bunch of squirrels eating the wallpaper because it's a nut house or something. You check out her belfry and you see a bunch of bats flying there, all squawking and stuff. And for some reason, someone like Daniel saw that, knew about this, and came to the conclusion that he must put his dick in that spurgy snatch. Maybe he thinks autistic pussy makes you come faster like Sonic the Hedgehog, who knows? This was revealed recently thanks to Naomi making a video where she tells her side of the story. But before we watch her allegations, I want you to know that I am not here to say who is guilty or who isn't. I'm actually just surprised that Daniel is any sort of straight. My goal is to reveal that this stuff is going on while Daniel has been hanging around with big-titted beaners like Murphy and Napier, talking about how he's all for feminism, believe all women, thinking Trump is this evil womanizer, and essentially adding another nail to the coffin for male feminists all over. Now let's watch what is, perhaps, the only video I can enjoy where a woman is yapping as Naomi goes insane for over half an hour.
Hi guys! 2 years ago, YouTuber Daniel Greene threatened to wipe me off of social media. So if I disappear, you'll know who did it.
Well, about a month later, she deleted her channel on her own accord, so already she's lying. Really weird how you let something like this sit for a bit and it changes everything so quickly.
In June of 2023, I made a video and posted it here on YouTube. It was titled, A Conversation About Manipulation, Consent, and Assault.
In the video she mentions, she talks about how she was promised a relationship, to be more than just friends, with some guy she was with in Las Vegas. And she made it as specific as possible without saying Daniel's name. However, in that video, she makes it clear that the concept of sexual assault she is accusing him of is where he had sex, then didn't want to see her again after, which she called sexual assault because it was the idea of lying for sex or lying and then having sex. To simplify it, her argument was that if you cheated on your fiancé with a mistress, told the mistress that you're going to leave your fiancé, and then didn't leave your fiancé, then somehow the mistress was sexually assaulted and the bigger victim during the situation. I'm sure the court will believe that type of logic.
8 days later, I received a cease and desist from Daniel Greene's lawyer, threatening me with a lawsuit, demanding that I take that video down in 24 hours, or they would sue me for slander and defamation, they would bury me under legal fees, and they would wipe me off of social media.
The key fact that she's saying here is that Daniel was not mentioned during a topic about sexual assault. And then Daniel tries to make it about himself, with nothing else that could have caused this type of legal action. She's making it sound like he's outed himself out of the blue. If you only watched up to this part, you'd think Daniel's guilty of the accused of sexual assault. Because why else would anyone present such a situation 8 days later? Sadly, many people on BookTube did this, believing that, just from him taking it to court, he was guilty.
I got the rope right here.
I go to Vegas often to get tattooed. Daniel knows that.
She makes this point over and over again, and it means absolutely nothing because what she says next defeats the entire purpose of saying her tattoo excuse. But again, if you watched only up to this part, you'd think she was on her way to get a tattoo in Las Vegas as if she lives there, and Daniel popped out of the bushes and went at it like a wild animal. You're going to see very soon that she was there for something else that was not the tattoo excuse she will be repeating over and over again.
She called him a medical professional. As far as I know, I don't think he's a doctor.
Yeah, you had to admit, that's pretty funny. It's a bit like watching two retards fighting, and neither one of them is able to land a swing, but both end the fight with a swollen tongue.
After what he did to me in Vegas, I reached out to his partner.
So, let's recap, because this is where Naomi is already playing hide the ball with important information. 1. She first said that she never mentioned Daniel in the video, and there should be no reason to write the cease and desist. 2. Now she's saying after making the initial video, she directly contacted Daniel's fiancé to tell her all about what happened. Consider me crazy, but don't you think that telling someone that you fucked their husband-to-be and had a secret relationship with them for 3 years, and wrote songs about him, and stalked him across multiple states, And by the way, had sexual encounters 3 times in a row during this Las Vegas trip across 3 different days, don't you think maybe, just maybe, that person would have the guy know that this little discussion occurred? Nah, I'm with Naomi on this one. It was supposed to be hush hush. It's all a mystery that Daniel knew this video was all about him.
I know what it's like to move country for somebody and then find out that they're a lying, cheating piece of shit. I needed her to know that I didn't want it.
Ah, yes. Naomi really hates cheaters, but only when she is the one cheated on. The chick that Daniel was trying to marry, Kayla, she doesn't matter. And not to fast forward too much already, but Naomi considers a guy looking at another girl's ass cheating. I guess looking at a guy's ass is cheating too, not sure. But what is certain is that there is a running theme here where Naomi will change the definition of words whenever it's convenient.
He was sober and wide awake, and I was half asleep and on drugs.
Half asleep is still half awake. Also, to really let you know how full of shit she is, her idea of half asleep is to where she can still be able to walk around and remember every little detail of what happened. You know what I do when I'm half asleep? Not agree to sexual encounters and just fall back asleep. Surprise! I haven't been raped yet. Ain't that something to ponder over?
Which he knew.
It says in the text that she took 40 milligrams of an edible, meaning marijuana. I have no idea if 40 milligrams is a lot, and I have no reason to look it up. Do you know why? Marijuana is not a drug that causes you to become intoxicated to where you're unable to give consent. I mean, if that was the case, every hippie would be locked up for having sex after getting zooted. I understand the law when they don't want you to drive a car when you're blazing, but you can still pack some fudge after eating brownies, as the kids always say.
And I spent $420 just getting baked by the pool.
When she said she was always in Vegas to get her tattoos, that had nothing to do with this event because now we're told it was $420 and she was eating skunk-flavored gummy worms or whatever these edibles are. So when she told the lawyer in the email about how she's innocent because she's always in Las Vegas for shitty tattoos, that was a lie. And now she's telling us she lied to the lawyer, trying to play dumb. Well, I don't know, is it playing dumb when you're actually dumb?
Taking 40 milligram edibles all day. Because it was fucking $420.
Flawless reasoning. I can picture the lawyer saying this in the courtroom. Your Honor, if it may please the court, my client was blazed out of a fucking gourd because it was $420. Then what's the judge gonna say? Sure, bro, that's pretty dank, dude.
I specifically asked him to bring coffee if he wanted to stay up and talk. I specifically asked him to bring coffee.
He did not bring her coffee? That monster.
He turned up at midnight, sober and awake, and pressured me, half asleep and on drugs, into sexual things that he and I had agreed beforehand would not happen.
Her allegation is that they agreed to not do anything sexual beforehand, and he ended up doing sexual things anyway, breaking the consent. Now get ready for some whiplash because this statement will change about 420 times across the rest of her exotic way of telling a story.
I was halfway through a sentence when he pushed me over and shoved his tongue in my mouth.
Ew. Daniel really needs to find a better place to put his tongue into, like a sewer pipe. And he did that sober? Oh my Atlanta? But when she says halfway through a sentence, she doesn't say what that sentence is. I'll give you a hint. She was offering sex for money and said yes to the sex.
He repeatedly tried to stick his penis in me, saying, come on, just the tip, just the tip. I repeatedly pushed his penis away, saying, I'm not having sex without lube, I'm not having sex without lube, I'm not having sex without lube.
Well, here's your problem. You said yes to sex as long as there was lube. With the amount of pre-cum he was drizzling all over the place like the mouth of a retarded dog, you got plenty of lube there, sweet cheeks.
I cannot self-lubricate or stretch.
Lady, you have a stomach full of chiba and you wonder why you're dry all over. Yes, there's a problem with it when there's a hormonal issue, but that's why you gotta take a thing for your hormones. And if you cannot stretch, why did you agree to be a prostitute with Daniel? Oh, I'm sorry. That's giving the ending away. Carry on, cunt, we're all listening.
Jerking off onto me, moaning, about how long he'd dreamt about it. It was fucking disgusting. I reached out to his girlfriend. She replied and asked me for the truth.
The girlfriend, Kayla, is by far the only sympathetic person throughout the entire story. The second she realizes she's been getting cheated on for over 2 years, and the person that Daniel is cheating on her with is a homeless drug-addicted autismo, her only response is, just tell me the truth. I would not blame Kayla if she snapped and went insane from this event. The idea that someone will pick the worst person in the world to destroy a future marriage, to then receive a message from that person to rub it in her face, is something that not even the most absurd of fiction could conjure. If someone wrote this event into a show, I would think that this was a scene from Drawn Together rather than author tube drama.
By the time I got home, she had asked me to leave her alone.
Yeah, because you're fucking annoying. And just to skip ahead, because I've been omitting all that random non sequitur that she's been rambling on with for over 30 minutes, this crazy skankaroni brags about writing 8 pages of notes to people, printing them out, giving it a royal stamp, and then reading all those pages to the person and forcing them to listen. What exactly does Daniel and his fiancée need to listen to? Oh, that's right. About how you're a crazy stalker who doesn't leave Daniel alone, chases him across the country, then guilts him into paying your bills and being your sugar daddy, to then try to steal him away from Kayla. Then, using these rape allegations when he says he's staying with Kayla. I'm sorry, I'm giving away the ending, shit!
A handful of days later, she reached out to me again to call me a vile, despicable human being. It was that message that made it very clear to me that she had been asking him for the truth, and he was still lying.
No, you lied. You are the one who lied to the lawyer, you lied to Kayla, you lied to Daniel, you lied to the tattoo artist, you lied to the entire internet about everything. All because you wanted to break up with your boyfriend and get with Daniel, but Daniel wanted to stay with Kayla, which is the closest thing to a sane decision that Daniel has made through this entire endeavor. Everything else he's done through all this, from trying to be a sugar daddy, to smoking drugs in a Las Vegas hotel with this creature over here, to saying things like he's always wanted a sexual moment and paying for it, throwing dollar bills all over a dry muff cabbage. This is why someone like Daniel needs a father in his life instead of 2 mothers. The only thing I disagree with Kayla on is that she put it too lightly. To be a person like Naomi, where you decide to be a homewrecker, try to destroy a happy relationship, rob a man of his wealth in the meantime, then when you don't get your way you make false rape allegations. That takes a clear lack of humanity. By law, Naomi is to be tried in a court as a human, but morally, Naomi is a monster directly spawned out of a Kinda and Typhon.
There's no way in fucking hell you do that to me and then use me as a fucking scapegoat. Jesus Christ.
In the writing, she states that they were not having an affair. In a shocking twist, this is a lie, revealed later on by Naomi herself. Since I'm constantly letting the cat out of the bag, I'll do it again here. Yeah, they were fucking behind Kayla's back for like 3 years, and Daniel was paying for pretty much all of her stuff the entire time. All this started around the time he released his book, Breach of Peace. And in another video, Daniel talked about how he made a profit of about $100K on his first 2 books, to then buy a house for himself and Kayla. But what we have to realize is that the money people paid and supported him with, the networking people like Brandon Sanderson and Murphy Napier did with him to grant him this $100K, he was, at the same time, getting zooted in Las Vegas with Naomi, and throwing money on her like the prostitute she is. Literally throwing dollar bills on her naked, misshapen body!
Dude, put that thing away! They're like children here!
Whenever people say we need to support indie and support author tubers, I'm always reminded how my money will go to creatures like this. This Naomi fiend. This demented gargoyle, going to her and her drug addictions and plane tickets and tattoos. Aren't you glad you paid for those books now, you bunch of suckers?
I sent her 8 pages that I had written, because this is how I fucking deal with shit. If I have something to say with somebody, I write it down, and I make them listen.
Okay, but why? If all you had to do was tell the truth, and there was no affair for 3 years, then why are there 8 pages of this shit? And again, may I remind you, she acted confused in the beginning as to how Daniel knew the video was about him. So you tell the girlfriend it was about him. You wrote 8 pages to her and forced her and Daniel to listen to say it was about him. You went back and forth for days about this, saying how the video was about him. And now you're like, what is this? An email from Daniel's lawyer? Huh, this is impossible because I always go to Las Vegas to get tattoos. Guys, please stop sticking your dick in crazy. Especially if it's dry and stupid and nutty as a fruitcake.
I had proof that I fucking fought for her. I had proof that I fought for their relationship. I begged him to fucking talk to her for 2 fucking years.
Ah yes, you fought for her for 2 years and simply kept having sexual relations with her fiance. Do you know how you can actually fight for relationships to stick together? By not fucking someone else's fiance. I know, revolutionary.
If he had truly told her everything, this shouldn't have made a fucking difference, but it looks like it did. And in case he is denying having ever heard this, here is the exact date and time I told him about it, the exact date and time I followed up about it, and the exact date and time we had that call.
Naomi, your constant bickering and nagging and retarded rambling at them in private is why the video that came out publicly is being linked to Daniel by Daniel. You're being sued because you made it public when it was private before. I understand socialists don't know the difference between public and private, but the video is public and those meaningless 8 pages of how you're a filthy harlot was private. Capiche? And you're acting like you had numerous cases of sexual assault on 420 at the same time Daniel was there and got you a hotel room for 3 days. And yes, that is something she didn't mention in the first part, that she was there with Daniel for 3 days. And for every day, they had sexual relations. But somehow, only the first one was considered non-consensual. Wrap that one around your head.
Oh, and by the way, he knew that I already had PTSD from previous trauma.
Well, there's your problem. I know this is very inconsiderate, considering the situation. But I hope guys eventually realize that all these women who talk about being sexually assaulted and raped and all that jazz are simply damaged goods. I've never really seen a case where someone had all of this trauma and it resulted in having a good or better relationships compared to normal people. However, I know plenty of cases where these chaotic women who have all this trauma and do all these drugs and have all these mental disorders end up making the worst relationships as some of the most abusive and harmful partners.
Finding out that someone who hurt you is keeping tabs on you and watching you.
That's you watching and keeping tabs on Daniel. That's literally you. That's you writing 20 songs about the big dummy. I know I keep flipping a few pages ahead, but that's seriously what she did. And when confronted, she's like, oh, well, that's not out of the ordinary. I write 20 songs for everyone I know. Well, you know what a sane person does? Write 0 songs for random people that they don't care about. I don't know if she needs mental help or just a job at this point. She's in the house playing with her voodoo anal beads or whatever the hell she has strewn about behind her. She needs a real hobby like gardening or birdwatching. Something.
I never said it was about him, and I'm not saying that it is.
You just spent like an hour saying it's about him. All my frustration is 20% at her statement and 80% at Daniel for thinking this was cum-worthy. Daniel, why did you destroy your relationship for such a useless bag of rocks?
He said it was about him, and that he threatened to sue me if I didn't take it down within 24 hours.
Good. He should. Daniel, sue away. You have my blessing. The fact that Naomi essentially stole money, ruined a marriage, which is also technically a business, to then also constantly harass through online and real-life contact accumulates to more than enough circumstances to justify suing her. I understand some people might think that's harsh, But I think it's hard for people to comprehend how a life can be ruined from false rape allegations, especially when they are proven false by Naomi herself within her own accusations. Her failure to do it well still ended up costing Daniel several networking contacts over pure lies. The mere allegation of rape causes companies to blacklist the one accused before any trial is done, simply for the fact of bad publicity and from how the public reacts so emotionally to what are only allegations. And with this current yet thankfully dying trend of Me Too and Believe All Women, a false rape allegation is able to cause far more harm than what it should cause if we lived in a sane society.
And in case you're wondering if there have been any allegations against Daniel, there was. He told me about it. That's the only reason I know about it. He told me it was false, and that there's no way it could be true, because he wasn't there at the time.
Naomi presented a post from a blackened out Tumblr user that reads, "Daniel Greene is a rapist. He raped me in the summer of 2016. He is a YouTuber now with hundreds and thousands of followers. Please do not follow him. He uses his social justice issues for his own gain as a white straight male." I believe later Naomi clarifies that Daniel is bisexual, but I guess it's a typical bi erasure since he's marrying a chick and dust blowing whatever Naomi is. "He did many things to me without my consent. And then he raped me and left him to leave his father's house bleeding. Fuck you, Daniel. Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you." Then in 2021, Daniel is shown to bring the Tumblr post up, which is possible to have been up on his Tumblr page to then be seen by him and reblogged so much. I had to assume because ain't no way I'm gonna be digging through 5 years of Daniel's Tumblr and scrolling through every comment section to come up with the same obvious conclusion. When Daniel claims he couldn't have been in that state, but we're already presented with him being a liar from all the cheating he did, it's easy to believe the random Tumblr post, when he's also shown to have screenshots about how he'll always be a cheater and how he has voices in his head.
And all the shit that he had been saying and doing behind his partner's back for 2 years, okay? He said she deserved to know everything, and by golly did I agree.
Even though Daniel is not proven as a rapist through the inherent contradictions that Naomi has made through her false allegations, it still brings up the actual proof that Daniel unfortunately has mental issues. I can't remember if he's constantly talked about what they are to an exact degree, other than his dyslexia, but he has explained in a channel update and promotional announcement of his book, Neon Ghosts, that he had a terrible year in 2023, and that he had to take mental health days. And from what I vaguely remember from a casual view of his content over the years, he's always talking about taking mental health days. Not to make too many hot takes in one video, but I actually don't believe mental health days are a thing. You're simply tired, lazy, or both. I don't know why people are so afraid of going, look, I do editing all day, I'm reading all day, I want to enjoy some sunlight and refill my imagination tanks. I'm sure 100% of people will stand behind that. But for some reason, YouTubers, and specifically author-tubers, keep talking about mental health days.
And finally, I have had so many people reaching out since I made a community post essentially saying, hey, I need to step away for mental health reasons and making sure I'm okay. Just getting into it, 2023 has been the worst year of my life on a personal front, a lot of which is my fault. And my advice to people is if you have loved ones around you who for years are telling you you have unresolved problems, you're working too hard, there's issues going on, and if you have repressed memories coming to the surface, don't wait for things to come to a cataclysmic head. Get help. Get help. Get help.
But notice how he said 2023 was a terrible year. The cease and desist letter to Naomi was sent back in June of 2023. Daniel made the video talking about mental health breaks in July of 2023. And this was when he said 2023 was the worst year of his life because this is the same year he tried to cork the bunghole on 420. And may I remind you that Neon Ghosts had a Kickstarter that raised nearly $270,000 from a bunch of traumatized women who support his channel. If he tried for another Kickstarter, I am not sure he would come out to the same results due to the stigma even though these are obviously false allegations. But at the same time, people now had to see Daniel differently due to him cheating on his fiancée, his drug use, and his fuckboy mentality, which now dismantles his reputation as a male feminist since he's more of a womanizer.
He told Discord he was there, but he was only there to visit his father.
I understand that this is yet another false allegation against Daniel from yet another insane skink, but every time he defends himself, it's baffling how bad he is at it. His defense is that he could not have sex in his dad's house because he was in his dad's house. Soon, you'll see how the entire accusation is bullshit, but understand how bad Daniel looks when he contradicts himself like this.
Let's talk about day number 2.
What? There were 2 days of this going on? I know there was actually 3 days, but 2 days? Naomi is accusing Daniel of raping her over the course of 2 days now. As if she's trapped in some kind of Las Vegas Gestapo's last orgy sex dungeon celebrating Hitler's birthday.
Right, this was a last-minute tattoo appointment. It was last minute.
So remember everyone, Naomi says she's always in Las Vegas getting tattooed, but this time on 420, when she said she's only there to get tattoos, she ended up getting a spot on the second day she's there because she never made a tattoo appointment and went to Las Vegas anyway. How many times is she gonna hammer down the fact that she lied to Daniel's lawyer?
He started pressuring me all over again. And he kept saying, oh, what's the difference? You already did it once. You already did it once. What's the difference?
I mean, I hate to agree with Daniel, but that's a fair point. All he's gonna do is use you as a cum rag again. It's not like you spent time to finally buy lube or anything.
I had a fucking tattoo appointment.
What, are you getting a tattoo in your vagina? You got plenty of holes to have at it.
Both times he jerked himself off onto me. Except the second time, it was worse. Because he also shoved his dick in my mouth.
Why, did you have a dentist appointment too?
I remember my mouth was so fucking dry from the edibles.
Does she think it's impossible to drink water in the hotel room or something? She just said she came back from breakfast. Don't they serve orange juice in the hotel? I'm actually puzzled how she ate breakfast with a dry mouth, especially if it's pancakes. Those things are like swallowing sticky feathers if you don't chew them down enough.
Felt like a fucking carpet.
Well, I'm pretty sure those are called pubes, and maybe you should thank Daniel for flossing your teeth after a meal. Probably had like popcorn kernels and apple skins stuck all around his pecker. He
came all over my buttock, which is sacred.
That's not your buttocks, that's your guns. The buttocks are in the back. Jeez, this girl's dumb. Doesn't even know an ass from an elbow.
And then I went and I got tattooed.
Ah yes, the threatening sexual assaults that happened over the course of 2 days, followed by going to get a tattoo. And that's exactly what a sane person would do when they're in constant danger from a sexual predator. I know I'm joking here and there to lighten the mood, but you know how demeaning it is to actual sex assault victims and rape victims to have her try to wedge this event into their horrific trauma? It's like you have these people who survived being chained up in some basement and starving and being used for all sorts of unthinkable horrors. Then Naomi is like, oh yeah, I feel your pain. This one time, some guy jerked off on me after I accepted sex for money, but then he refused to break up with his fiancée to be with me, so we share the same type of suffering. Fake rape stories like this are why women have trouble being believed when an actual problem occurs. The boy who cried wolf effect will only cause the pendulum to swing the opposite way in due time, and I would hate to see that happen. The main thing that I'm thankful for out of this situation is that Naomi is too stupid to make a believable case, caused by her inability to comprehend the English language and reality, which prevents an innocent person from going to jail, even though Daniel is a scumbag in general. He is a fuckboy who cheated on his fiancée, but that's not jail-worthy. Although, not to digress too far, it is jail-worthy in some states if you cheat on your spouse, which is a bit odd if you ask me. Not that it shouldn't be illegal, but that it's based on the states. Either way, Daniel just has a girlfriend who still, by some miracle, wants to marry him. We'll get into that later. It's not a legal matter, just something that looks bad for a celebrity. As if there's never a famous person who cheats on their girlfriend and still gets work. It's almost like celebrities are the main people who cheat on their partner because they're always so full of mental disorders. But, you know, some people are surprised. Not me. I expect it from mentally deranged drug addicts. I'm fully aware of the self-destructive actions that revolve around a chaotic lifestyle, circling and expanding like a tornado of turmoil. Naomi ends her video with 5 minutes of a panic attack, which she repeats constantly that she couldn't have faked it. Orgasms, those can be faked. Panic attack? Oh no. Those are all genuine. What I wanted to mention about this part is that it's easy for her to have a real panic attack, but have it caused by something else, like the realization of being sued, and her being practically homeless with no job, and her sugar daddy no longer paying her bills. It's easy for people to do, especially a woman, to think of a whole bunch of stressful things and then give themselves a panic attack to then blame it on something that didn't actually cause it, especially when their brain is already full of holes like a rotten tooth, all from her extreme drug abuse. The problem with situations like this is that they're only allowed to mention legal or socially acceptable drugs like weed. If she mentioned all the drugs that she's been taking all her life, it'd read out like Motley Crue's grocery list. I will never have any way of knowing how absolutely destroyed Naomi and Daniel have their brains from their drug abuse. But I want to say something very clear that will shock many. Drugs are bad for you. I know, I'm full of hot takes today. But most drugs, including alcohol, are neurotoxins that are called such because they literally kill your brain cells. From what I've seen in Naomi's behavior, her most likely drug of choice besides weed is probably LSD or ecstasy, mostly due to these three being considered party drugs and popular among those who have Asperger's. I mention her Asperger's because people who are already inclined to drug use and suffer from social anxiety tend to take ecstasy to remove these social barriers. With her, social anxiety most likely caused by whatever trauma she's experienced as a child combined with her mental disorders. Not to start critiquing a video that was done in probably a single day for the sake of getting everyone's attention while saying it's not for attention, but Naomi is not really organized when she's trying to make her case. To blindly believe these things that happened in the hotel would require the most evidence. Outside of Daniel admitting that he was having an affair and felt bad, and the girlfriend hates Naomi and all that, the only evidence is that there was cheating involved in the situation. If this was taken to court, there would be no case for either side, because it's all he said, she said. The judge would be annoyed by her rambling. When Naomi's first video came out, I didn't know how this was going to turn out. Thankfully, I waited. Because she then came out with a second video that acted as a complimentary part 2. Well, what could go wrong with a part 2? All this means is clarification that Naomi was actually assaulted, right? Spoiler! She reveals even further that she was making the whole thing up. What a twist!
There has been a lot of confusion surrounding timelines and dates.
We're not really confused by the timelines or dates. We're just confused by the fact that you said there were 2 rapes across 2 days. And personally, I'm confused by your weird feathery rainbow smock. Nice jacket, Toots. Who shot the gay sofa?
People think that the 8-page letter was written after the trip, even though I stated it was written weeks before the trip.
Ah yes, the very important point to make about how your psycho letters were written weeks before you were fucking Daniel in Las Vegas. Go on.
I am not denying having history with Daniel in the past. He first slid into my DMs over Black Lives Matter.
Naomi claims that Daniel messaged her first over Black Lives Matter, which if I remember correctly started around 2013. With George Floyd making it a massive issue around 2020. And I guess that drug addict made drug addicts like Naomi and Daniel feel like they had to talk about it on Instagram of all places. You know, like a brother overdosing on another drugger. It's kind of funny how both of these pumpkin brains keep using Instagram to hook up and find something to have sex with, but we're not allowed to show nudity on Instagram. If anything, that website is just like a Costco-style free sample station for OnlyFans. It's designed for free samples, but everyone knows that's someone's breakfast with a gal named Tiffany, if you know what I mean. In the initial text, Daniel says, "I keep seeing this, and it makes me so angry. I honestly can't see what the image is, but I guess it's something to do with black people rioting. People of all color have peacefully protested for a generation. Yeah, I guess that you can say that, since the only generation they did it was in the 60s. Hell yes, they are justified in what they are doing today. And Daniel's literally celebrating the burning of cities. Good to know. Fucking racist boomers couldn't even stay inside for a pandemic? Yeah, because lockdowns were stupid. Everyone knows that. Now they want murder to go unpunished. Is this about George Floyd or OJ? Hard to tell. Sorry to weirdly vent. Just thank you for saying that. It needed to be said loudly. Something tells me her post had practically no views, and anything she did have views with were from when she was naked in music videos. I can't really find the pictures after she deleted her whole existence, and I didn't plan to save them. And even if I did save them, I couldn't really show them here since they are literally her naked in the video. She has those stripper pasties on, but still naked. You'd think she'd live on an OnlyFans with how often she posts naked pictures. The song she mentioned, nobody cares. She's just bragging that she wrote songs about Daniel that nobody heard and nobody wants to sing. Even she doesn't want to sing them. This is just proof that she's a crazy stalker. Next screenshot on the list is an added context where Daniel said he'd probably always be a cheater. This one is great because Naomi wanted to know his deepest, darkest secret, and all he says is that he'd probably always be a cheater. Then she asks, is that because you prefer polyamory but get stuck in monogamous relationships? Or do you like the thrill of doing something you're not supposed to do? Then Daniel says, I think it's all of the above, honestly. And this is proof that Daniel is a bit of a troublemaker. He's not the goody two-shoes, bookish sort that he plays off to be in his videos. I like to see these types of reveals because Daniel is meant to be this morally superior socialist advocate guy. But then he talks about wanting to break the law and counter social norms like respecting his own relationships. This self-defeating and self-harming behavior has a name in Freudian psychoanalysis called thanatos, or the death drive, which is the counter to eros, the life instinct. Freud hypothesized that we can develop a drive from trauma or a hatred of the world, which causes us to yearn for an inorganic state. When the body is functioning normally, the instinct of eros causes us to avoid pain and destruction by aiming toward things that provide a longer life and pleasure. But when someone is traumatized, they experience a type of pleasure in destroying their life, which he believed was caused by the superego unable to control the ego. The superego is how a person views society, and how social pressures keep a person in line with social expectations. The ego is the result of the superego and the more primitive id coming in to compromise to make a rational decision that can then be acted out in reality. When Daniel says he's there to break rules, he's there to oppose his superego, which is his interpretation of what the rules even are. They aren't the actual rules he must follow, just what he thought people wanted out of him. This means that when he's in a normal relationship with one girl, he wishes to kill that thing. He's driven to kill it with his death drive, which then causes a self-destructive behavior. I have no idea what trauma he experienced that caused this to be specifically with drugs and relationships, but it's always fascinating to see people aim upward in one way, such as his following and income, to then aim downward in other ways, such as his mental and physical health. It's almost like there's this mix of narcissism with the death drive that causes a self-hatred that is unable to be directed at the self, and so that hatred must be inspired into other people with his activity. And there is also an aggression aspect to sex, which further makes the case for the death drive, since the death drive is guided with aggression. For Naomi, it's the same thing, but you know, times 10.
For all the people who are confused as to what the fuck spoil even means, I'm a sugar baby.
Sugar baby means she's a prostitute who also takes gift cards from other companies. That's basically what it is. Technically, you don't need to give up the gash to be a sugar baby, but that's not the case for Naomi since she gave it up for years as the mindless mistress.
Now, he and I were not daddy baby. He wanted to spoil me as a friend.
Yeah, a friend with benefits.
Me sharing this information makes me look bad.
Do you know how many times people say, that's just a friend, and they're fucking? Nobody's going to be spending a weekend with a chick in a hotel room, butt naked, getting zooted, and leaving the place with a full nutsack. If you're just friends, why weren't there more friends in the hotel room? Why wasn't Kayla invited? If this friend group is so large, with so many online famous people getting together for 420, then why not have 3 people in the hotel room? 4 or 5? I can go on and on. Everybody calls bullshit on this one.
We discussed hanging out. He wanted to fucking pay for the entire trip and give me money. I wanted to get fucking tattooed. It was kind of a win-win.
You say you were sexually assaulted twice. It was 3 times, but the first video she only mentioned 2 days. And you think this was a win-win? Actually, win-win means both parties benefit, so where is Daniel's benefit for taking a friend to Vegas and paying for them? Also, I just realized that Naomi literally gets acting gigs and is painfully unemployed with no money. Like, how does this happen?
On March 28th, I wrote the 8-page letter. March 28th. This is weeks before the trip.
So in January of that year, they planned the trip, and Daniel talks about how they're just friends, and she's going to get just a tip. Then less than a month before 420, she writes 8 pages about how she's obsessed with Daniel and wanted to be in a relationship she couldn't be in because Kayla was in the way. Why does Naomi make it sound like weeks early matters so much when it was nearly in the same month? Like, it's literally less than 4 weeks. What was the point of this?
We decided during that call, 100%, nothing was gonna happen between us. This was one hell of a fucking wake-up call. It made him sign up for fucking therapy again. We made that decision. Just friends. We're not doing that to her.
The wake-up call happened before the 420 fornication, and people are confused by this because that would mean Daniel is admitting to cheating on Kayla with Naomi before 420. This is just nullifying the idea that there was nothing between the two, and they were not just friends. Naomi is really digging her grave on this one.
So now I am here to answer the questions. What were you wearing?
Why is that even a question? She already said she was butt naked. Oh, I'm sorry. This is the video where she says she was butt naked.
And I was buck-ass naked because I always sleep naked. I remember one of the first things he said upon seeing me was he commented on how high I looked. So I said, "You want to catch up?"
Wait. Does she just have a jar of edibles sitting on her desk? Lady, you're supposed to have like multivitamins or Pepto-Bismol lying around, not narcotics. I mean, you know, I can't see what she's holding in her hand, but props to her for using props.
He took half a bite of one, which would have been 10 milligrams, but that takes about an hour to kick in.
They talked for longer than an hour, and it doesn't matter if Daniel was high or not. Both being intoxicated with marijuana extract doesn't make a difference. Naomi then obnoxiously dramatizes the day she was sexually assaulted, which is expected when someone is traumatized and taken advantage of. In the middle of it, she nearly exposes her deformed left titty, thankfully covered by her tattooed bingo wings. Then she says,
I was half asleep. Like I had the strength to get up, make a couple jokes, and then get back in bed. But I was not fully there. So he was pressuring me.
Half asleep but still half awake. Then out of nowhere, she clipped a part of the video that she personally sent to Daniel, which inevitably becomes the main piece of evidence that completely destroys her entire narrative.
You started talking money, I said. I could do that, expecting more of a conversation, but you took that as a cue to start making out with me.
So they started talking about how much she would cost for sex, and she said she'll fuck for money, which means she was awake enough to do business negotiations, but somehow this was too sleepy to say no. And she puts this clip herself in her own video. This is just stupid.
Now I will acknowledge that I did not fight him off.
She didn't fight him off, she didn't say no. Rather, she just said yes to sex 3 days in a row. I don't know, it's hard to tell if that's consent or not. Just kidding, of course that's consent! Like, if this is not consent, then what is? And if it's not, then how impossible is it for a guy if he's getting a million yeses across 3 different days, and then is forced to find out that it was a no several weeks later? You know, several weeks later when Daniel said he won't leave Kayla for her? That's several weeks later?
I really did not have time to think.
You said yes to sex for money. How is that not having time?
Push over, shove tongue in mouth, suck the titties, lick the pussy, lick the asshole.
Finally, a song with good lyrics from her. Add a beat, put it on repeat, bing bada boom, you have a hit single.
I've seen some comments from some people saying, like, the fuck, it takes time to jerk yourself off. Not for him, it doesn't.
Okay, points given for great comedic timing, but if he came so fast, how could he say a name repeatedly? She's just being a brat over this. It's actually funny how angry women get when a guy comes fast, but that's just sperm spreading efficiency. 24 hours in a day, come in 10 seconds, boom! 8,640 babes impregnated. All in a row. Women are jealous of that ability.
Night 1, what he moaned on the loop while jerking himself off was this. Oh, Naomi. Oh, I have no idea how long I've thought about this.
The dude got out a whole soliloquy and you're complaining that was fast? Get out of town.
He went into the bathroom and stayed there.
I wanted to add this part because when she says, stay there, her dog barks like, yes sir! And I can imagine the dog sitting down to stay. You have to admit, a cute dog accidentally obeying an order is funny. Sorry, let's get back to the fake drama.
The following morning, Daniel informed me that he spent the entire night crying and puking.
Maybe it's because he licked your ass and got your doo-doo butter, messing up his gut microbiome.
We just talked about this over breakfast. You promised me we were just friends. He kept pressuring me. So as per usual, I did not fight back. And I will acknowledge that. He did push me to my knees and shove his dick in my mouth, saying, suck my cock.
And you did. You sucked it. And you didn't say no. I can understand being pushed down to your knees can be bad if it's like that scene from Dumb and Dumber when Lloyd is in that dirty trucker bathroom stall. But that isn't the same thing here. Daniel's not a naked trucker overpowering someone. She's literally just in the hotel room doing daddy dom nonsense while willingly sucking a cock.
That time, he also made me lie down on the bed while he laid the money that he took out of the ATM that he promised would be just for being friends on my body.
You're not forced to lay down on the bed. You know what you can do if you're thrown down on the bed? You can get off the bed and leave the room. Or what? Did he lock the hotel room from the outside? Over the course of 3 days? And to have the money you agreed to have sex with put on your naked body? That means you accepted the money? Was the money too heavy and weighed you down? If strippers can put $1 bills up their nose and between their toes to accept the money, then putting it on your body means you took it. And then you took it.
And I will acknowledge I did not fight him off.
Naomi then reenacts Daniel jerking off like a gorilla playing dice when she says,
Think about this every time I fuck my own girlfriend.
this is perhaps the worst thing Naomi or Daniel could do, by turning this whole situation into a sex fantasy that places Daniel's fiancé into the situation. There was no reason to include this into the act. There was no reason to include this in the video. I understand this will come off as a bit biased, but I don't believe Daniel would say that during the act. He is a very secretive and manipulative fellow. He's not going to do something like that when Naomi is always so controlling. And Naomi would get angry if she heard other girls get mentioned. If anything, I believe Naomi put this as her own sick fiction that was put there from being a sore loser. And Daniel is staying with his fiancée, rejected Naomi, and now Naomi is doing this to be aggressive and as an attempt to get them to break up. Thankfully, it didn't work. And it's most likely Daniel's fiancé didn't buy it. She's also probably aware crazy bitches do that kind of thing.
I did not use the word no, and I did not use the word stop.
Then it was consensual. This case was closed ages ago. How many times do we have to open the book back up to add more info that makes us go, oh, okay, Daniel's still innocent then. Close it again. He's just a cunt that cheats a lot and destroys his own life with self-destructive behavior. We know that already.
There was a third day, and everyone's gonna be like, hey, why didn't you run away? Where the fuck was I gonna sleep?
Another hotel room? If I didn't already spoil the reveal, I would be like, a third day? Are you crazy? Are you out of your mind? But yeah, this is the third day now, and she's still in the same hotel room, enjoying piping hot, delicious cum. I try to think that if I was in this situation, being raped over and over again by this dangerous predator, and this predator is willing to pay for everything, then I would ask Daniel, hey, can you book me a flight tomorrow to go back? I just had something come up. Then think of something stupid like my dog got in my stash or something, and now he's meowing like a cat. Daniel would be like, sure, let's go, you're my sugar baby, and then it's a flawless getaway. Only one splash of cum instead of 3. Hey, that's a nice ratio. That's a passing grade.
Which is interesting because in his message here, he says, we didn't have sex. So we now officially have on record him saying that we had sex, but I have record here him saying that we didn't have sex.
This is the worst attempt at trying to catch a contradiction so far. Both of them are admitting to having sex. Both of them. What he meant by sex was that it wasn't vaginal, because that's what people mean by having sex when it's a man and a woman. Her being a cum dumpster isn't really sex, but it's still sexual conduct. I mean, you called it sexual assault, so now you don't want it to be sexual because you want to pin people down on what they colloquially mean by sex when they're talking about your dry vagina? This is nothing. Naomi then shows a series of screenshots that we'll get into later on.
On April 28th, he blamed his demons and the voices in his head for his behavior and blocked me.
In the text, Naomi says, hi, there's a part of me that's still hurt and mad and wants you to suffer. But also, I love you and care about you and am worried about you. You're going through a lot right now, and I've been thinking about you. This makes it look like she's referring to being assaulted, but it's actually in reference to her being rejected. Daniel stayed with his fiancée. Naomi was mad that he did. And so a week after the weekend getaway, she contacted him first, to then have him pour his heart out about his mentally unstable state of mind.
I'm trying to not be the person the voices in my head tell me I am. A part of that is stopping with the lies. The guilt made me suicidal.
Naomi skips the part where it says, I almost got put into an institution by the first shrink when I got back, like my mom. This is him saying his mother was put in an institution at one point, meaning his family is all sorts of messed up. Mother's a lesbian, divorced from his father, with who knows how much more drama is going on there. He continues with, as a result, I told Kayla everything. She deserves to know and has amazingly stuck with me. But the hurt I saw in her is my biggest regret in life. And Naomi then reads on with,
Realized so fucking much since I got back about why I am so fucked up and unhealthy towards sex and relationships. There are 2 people in me, and I want to be the good one. I am so sorry I hurt you as well. I didn't want to hurt anyone, and my God, you didn't deserve this, but I don't want to blame trauma or any excuse. I fucked up. I started acting like the voices in my head tell me I am. I can't just say it's because of what happened to me. No excuses. I will acknowledge that I did not fight him off, and I did continue to hang out with him afterwards, because I was in a state of shock. And I fawn, which I hate.
So if someone assaults you, then you will fawn over them and still hang out with them, acting like nothing happened? Got it. Okay, so this is just her confirming, again, she made up the whole thing. Because an actual sexual assault would not result in someone hanging out and fawning over the person they've been obsessed with and stalking for over 3 years.
Like, I'm gonna end up bankrupt, I'm telling you right now.
One can only hope. So that was the beginning of her allegation, which came out in 2 parts. That was the beginning of everyone turning on Daniel over something that was never proven, and was also shown to be contradictory in her own statements. Sadly, the second this video dropped, all of Daniel's friends reacted with the typical feminist response of, "I'm with they them." Believe all women made yet another male feminist reap what they sowed. Daniel was cancelled. By Murphy Napier, by Brandon Sanderson, hell, probably by Neil Gaiman himself thinking Daniel's a freak. If you are a feminist, you'd think this was a terrible thing Daniel did, even without evidence. If you were against feminism and wanted to say how male feminists are always guilty of something, you'd accidentally agree with the feminist, despite the lack of evidence. The most shocking thing for me when I first saw this video was the idea Daniel would say, "I've always wanted to do this," to something like Naomi, especially when he's already planning to marry someone. Maybe his channel is misleading with how he presents himself, but I would never think she's his type. I was under the impression he was one of those straight-edge, closeted, asexual type of socialists. Literally, what does she have that makes him obsessed with her? To want to ruin it with his lady-in-waiting? To want to marry one woman, to then go behind her back with this harlot? I'm simply at a loss for words. I mean, if you really want a concubine, there are far better choices out there, particularly in your local prostitutes, who know how to keep their mouth shut and their vag sodden. But once you assume the whole thing is going to be over and put on private, that's when Daniel responds. Like 3 times. And Naomi responds. And it becomes an endless mess. The first response from Daniel was a very robotic and heavily scripted 1-minute video that was him saying these allegations are not true, and he wants to take legal actions if she persists. If there was no follow-up to this, it would have looked horrible for him at that time. People would see it doesn't look natural, as if he was forced to make it. We've seen people in orange jumpsuits and a sack over their head with a more casual delivery. That video was later deleted or set to private. Some of the more common complaints were that he lawyered up, as if that was a sign of guilt. Again, I hate to agree with Daniel, but you're supposed to lawyer up whether you're guilty or innocent. And in this case, innocent. The environment for something like this is incredibly toxic, caused by feminism, which makes his destroyed feminist narrative all the more hilarious as this drama progresses. For these pathetic progressives. In a fantastic moment of both extreme irony and cosmic comeuppance, Daniel is now forced to fight against the feminist narrative and the queer theory and everything he previously defended. All because of one bad actress who is literally a bad actress. If you check out her IMDb, you can find out that she's been featured in a Hallmark movie called Coyote Creek Christmas, where she played the quirky gay friend Quinn, and she was in season 4, episode 5 of 2 Cents Horror Stories as the main gal. It's interesting to recognize how low the standards are for these types of roles, where someone like Naomi is able to get a gig. To any aspiring actor out there, I doubt there is any real barrier to getting a role these days, at least in Canada. I mean, look at this, they're hiring anybody. After his first video promising more to come, the follow-up video is where Daniel presented his case. And before we let her rip, I must say that Daniel has a fascinating ability to fail in claiming his innocence, to still come out as innocent as humanly possible. How does he do it?
And Naomi King, in their own second video, recently included evidence to prove the title of this video. One, there was a screenshot of a text sent where Naomi King states themselves that they were asking for us to go further on the second day of the trip. And on top of that, they included snippets from a video apologizing to Kayla, and there was even another one to myself, where they remove context where Naomi King explicitly states that the relationship was consensual.
Naomi was so stupid that even Daniel thought his disabling dyslexia could read the text she posted about how she begged him for sex, meaning she wanted it. Her anger, presented in the text, was about how Daniel chose the time and way they had sex. but then when she wanted sex, he would decline. My suspicion is that she didn't like the power struggle caused by a man deciding the sex, because she's a feminist who wants to control everything. And boy howdy has she been controlling. She's even in control of the dictionary with how she makes up definitions for sexual assault. But from this one little thing, a text she posted in her own video, before either one of them could speak a word. This instantly makes all the drama completely meaningless. Anything after this is for the sheer absurdity that is Naomi trying to rearrange the chess pieces before she shits on the board. And all because she couldn't control her own screenshots that she put in her own video. Do you know how stupid someone has to be to edit a video for hours on end, making up all this crying and talking about buttocks and how she's violated and sacred, to just drop screenshots of your own phone, which was a screenshot taken while Daniel was responding back to her? I'm sorry, not a screenshot, a picture? Wait, what the fuck is this? Did she really take a picture of her phone with another phone while Daniel was responding? How do you take a picture of a phone with the phone, put the picture in your computer, drag it around the video editor, and turn it to Bill Cosby? Oh, gold. And not realizing the face are all there. Okay, another bag of worms not worth opening.
In the days and weeks following us blocking Naomi King on several platforms, we continued to receive messages not only from Naomi King, but one of their friends.
Naomi claimed in the video that she didn't contact Daniel since she read a ridiculous 8-page manifesto about how she's obsessed with him, and now Daniel is countering her claim by saying it's the exact opposite. That not only did Naomi contact him, but she also has a hype man. Or I guess when it's a woman, it's called a hymen. These two lunkheads were harassing Daniel and Kayla non-stop, which makes me think Daniel is too passive with how much harassment he received. I also find it incredibly ironic when sexual relations are taken very seriously when it's about consent being breached, you know. There's a breach of peace, trademark. But when she goes against his consent for contact through communication, it seems consent no longer matters for her. People like Naomi do not have a grasp on the concept of time, and that's why people like her waste their lives doing absolutely nothing other than being fixated on meaningless activities. Or in this case, being a crazy stalker.
And once I realized Naomi King had contacted my stalker, Madison, that is when I decided to seek legal counsel.
Now, this little hint here is rather confusing because he's acting as if we all know who Maddie is. And I could have sworn there were several videos where he was hanging out with a girl named Maddie.
And so, yeah, this is my friend Maddie! Hi!
Which I found out at one point, but wasn't thinking to save it since I thought I could easily find them again. And now I can only find some videos from 2023 where a girl named Maddie is present, but never directly mentioned in the title. This girl in the video named Maddie is in his house, acting really friendly, but I'm not sure if she could be the same one that he violently vibrated in 2016. Although the way both of them speak is really similar. If anything, it's just a case of white women always having the same name and same Valley Girl accent. But I find it odd that all of this happened in 2023, and now we no longer see this Maddie girl in his videos anymore. Granted, basically nobody has been on his channel with him as a guest except for Kayla for this video here, which is cool since people move around and get busy all the time. But you had to admit it's weird that there is this possibility of two girls named Maddie and one is a stalker and the other one isn't, and he says Madison as if we're supposed to know who it is. And again, apparently there is a crazy stalker accusing him of raping her, and she's been stalking him since 2016. But there's also a girl named Madison hanging out at his house in 2023, around the time of this accused canoodling. Daniel was given a video from Naomi that was personally sent to him and Kayla right after the sex acts, which he plays small clips here and there as she aims her camera to the side and talks at her computer screen or something. I don't know, it's honestly a really weird video, but he uses it to show the contradictions.
I was on 50 milligrams that
that night you were on 10.
First of all, directly there, Naomi King is contradicting themselves, saying I was on 0, then 10. But in addition to that, even in the screenshot they show, they're messaging me about taking 40 milligrams around lunchtime, and then directly state that I arrived around midnight. I had no knowledge that Naomi King was continuing to take edibles, and that contradicts what actually happened when I arrived, where they walked down to the hotel lobby in a bathrobe, greeted me, and walked me back upstairs, sober as a whistle.
Daniel is clean as a whistle, not sober as a whistle. I'm sorry, it just irks me that he's having a serious moment and he gets an idiom completely wrong. Sorry everyone, editor Irwin's gonna leave for the moment to have Analysis Irwin talk. Hi, this is Analysis Irwin. Naomi's personal video shows that Daniel was on 10 milligrams of edibles, which is sort of important. Not really. I think his point is that if both are intoxicated, that neither one could break consent since both would technically have been raped by the other, and somehow that cancels out like a kamehameha. Either that or him being inebriated means he doesn't have ownership of his actions, which puts him off the hook. When it comes to making a point, it doesn't. However, in the court of law, if a statement or claim is considered contradictory or false, then it can be removed from the case as evidence or a point of contention, which I guess it was for Daniel to say, well, I was taking drugs that day, so looks like you lied, bitch. Now, I'm going to add a fact of the matter that will make you laugh like you took some edibles yourself. These two people are so dumb and so careless. They knew that Vegas has dispensaries. They knew that it was legal to take these edibles and smoke weed in Vegas. However, it's only legal to consume or smoke these in a private residence, meaning your house. A hotel is a public building, meaning they are admitting to breaking the law in Vegas over and over and over again during a case that they both are trying to take to court. I don't know if they can be tried for something that was 2 years ago and in a different state, or if they're simply barred from Vegas or banned from that specific hotel. But I find it fascinating that both of them broke the law while on their little Love Boat Bangathon. One last thing, as if it mattered. Daniel says she was sober, but it's actually hard to tell when she's naturally ridiculous. So Daniel just going, nah dude, she was totally sober, is a weird defense. And as if admitting to breaking the law wasn't already a weird defense to begin with.
Naomi King said in their video that I reached out to them and wanted to know the truth. In May, they sent me a video, unprompted, wanting to apologize for what had happened.
This poor, mousy woman is Kayla. As much as I want to make things humorous, to lighten the emotional load, I refuse to crack jokes about this innocent bystander who's only tried to keep the fragile thread of a normal relationship in one piece. When you look at her and hear her part of it, you have to understand the situation she's in. Kayla dropped everything in her life to have a business and relationship with Daniel before she was able to marry him. She doesn't own the house she's in. She doesn't have her own career away from Daniel's overreach. She doesn't seem to have anything. So when she eventually says she'll stay with Daniel, understand that her choices are essentially going out in the wilderness to fend for herself or stay in a nice house with a guy who she might be able to fix. That tiny sliver of hope that Daniel's fuckboy disease could be cured is what causes her to pick this life over one that is forced to start from scratch. And before we continue, I want to say this is the unfortunate situation for a lot of women out there. Again, ironically, Daniel has set this entire situation up to where Kayla lives like a woman would before women had rights, with how she lives in a house she doesn't own and is part of a business she's not in charge of. I honestly hope she has her own money and an escape plan, because Kayla, you need to have your own things established away from Daniel. But this is why a marriage is in 3 parts: yours, his, and the shared stuff in between. There is zero problem for him to have his own bank accounts, you to have yours, and then for there to be a marriage account that both can access. if the marriage goes through. A marriage is not only a unification, but also a friendly competition, where both parties are trying to complement the other. If Kayla has her own job, great. And if she has her own bank accounts full of money, awesome. But if she doesn't, then she's essentially a hostage in her own house. And I say this as someone who is incredibly old-fashioned. Even though the man is head of the household and the woman is below him, the woman is to still have her own share of the harvest and her own side of the bed. It's actually supposed to be where the woman handles the savings and the man handles the spending. But for some reason, feminism turned this onto its head and fucked it all up. To add more irony to this massive dumpster fire, Daniel has set up a situation where a girl feels trapped with him because of how they've set up their business together, rather than both of these feminists feeling like the woman is free to roam and do her own thing. I know this sounds harsh, but if both of them were actually feminists, Kayla wouldn't be with Daniel and put up with his shit like this. She'd be on her own, as her own girl boss. And yet here we are, with her forced to deal with what is pure nonsense with Daniel and Naomi.
Now, you might have noticed that my second response was never actually shown in either of their videos, and that is because it says this here: there is no mention of sexual assault. That is because there was absolutely none in the video I received. As a survivor of sexual assault myself, I take that very seriously, and had that been there, I would have had a very, very different response and conversation.
Oh wait, Naomi's last name is Orisa? Then why is she called Naomi King? Are you telling me that she's even been lying about her last name? What is even real with this bitch? Oh, that's right. I guess her panic attacks are real. I feel like I'm gonna have a panic attack from how many twists and turns this roller coaster has for absolutely no reason. In the response to Naomi, Kayla said, "I understand you feel guilty and wanting to say something, but please, just let me grieve in peace. I am trying to hold on to whatever pieces of my life I have left, and right now, this just sends me into a world of hurt. I just want it to stop. I just want to be left alone." Not to deviate from the point of all this, but I would like to say that Kayla, I would rather read your writing than Daniel's writing. Kayla has an amazing way to present her emotions and thought process through simple text, and that is incredibly hard to do. The feeling of hopelessness is ever so present. It's actually moving to read through it. I don't know if Kayla is also a fiction writer, but if she is, I would love to read that. Even if it's a romance or a slice of life, she's got the goods. And this is not me being condescending or sarcastic. I analyze writing all day, and this puts me in a place of awe. Back to the drama, Kayla correctly points out that there is no mention of sexual assault, and that's because Naomi never made it a sexual assault case in her personal video, which is most likely the main piece of evidence to truly hammer in the fact that Naomi lied, due to the video being made right after the event. Since Kayla suffers from her own trauma, there would have been more talk about the sexual assault thing, since that's more important than just the cheating thing. Honestly, the entire event is like a juggling act of trying to figure out what to focus on first as the bigger evil. When you combine drug abuse, cheating, and rape, it's interesting how the drug abuse and cheating looks insignificant compared to the rape thing. So when the rape part is absent, Kayla talking about knowing the truth now is a normal response to hearing about drug abuse and cheating. But now I'm kind of wondering what the reaction would be if someone told Kayla, "Your fiance smoked some weed with me." Because of their lifestyle, Kayla would probably see that as normal, or more like a worry of getting caught. I'm not sure how she would react to drugs though, I'm just speculating. They're liberals, but that acceptance naturally ends once there's cheating and rape.
I did to you what was done to me 10 years ago, and I fucking hate myself for it. I feel sick. It was one of the most painful things I have ever gone through, and I did it to you.
How does she do it? Naomi makes it about how she's the victim when she's telling another girl that she fucked her man. Her tears are not for Kayla, it's for herself, and thinking back like, Well, I was cheated on and I didn't like that. I'm so mad at that woman who had my husband cheat on me. I know you're not married yet, so your problem isn't as bad as mine. I'm the bigger victim than you are, Kayla. The only times I've seen that type of I have it worse than you while I'm abusing you nonsense is when psychopaths try to pretend they aren't harming people. Or when abusive parents beat their kids and then complain that they had it worse to justify the beating. This is something you see from unquestionable villains in movies that sprout devil horns because they're so evil. This is evil enough to cause more unnecessary trauma for Kayla. And Kayla has every right to be angry while talking about this. I'm actually more shocked that Kayla's able to keep herself as collected as she is in her segments. That is pure willpower, only cracking slightly. And even though Kayla is mousy, she is not weak. It really sucks that there are people angry at her for staying with Daniel, as if she didn't think about that option. Women think. Their entire life is thinking whether they should stay or go, because they always look for what is the better option. She holds the belief that Daniel will stop fucking around, or that it will at least prevent drama when he does it. And I just hope that it's a calculated decision that also comes with an escape plan.
I did not enjoy it. He did not enjoy it, and it kills me. I just want you to know I am truly sorry.
Okay, Naomi, you didn't like it. When did you find out that it was wrong to be a cheater? The first, second, or third day? Oh, I'm sorry. I should probably be asking the first, second, or third year, since this was going on for about 3 years. I'm disgusted thinking about all that cheating going on with him. Daniel kissing Kayla right or munching away. Poor Kayla having to smell Filipino pennies all over, around his mouth and up his nose, down his chin. Thinking it smells familiar yet foreign. Finding miscellaneous bottles of lube in his man purse. Seeing it go down in volume on days that he goes out of the house. Finding cock-shaped doo-doo butter stains in his underwear when she's doing laundry. Trying to remember if she gave up the balloon knot that week. Naomi and Daniel are sick.
It was Naomi King who on our second day there was repeatedly asking me to go buy lube despite me saying I did not want to have sex, and they went as far as to bring up a nearby sex shop on their phone's map app.
Until you found out I was a sugar baby, and that I had someone. And suddenly, another fire lit up under your ass and you wanted me again. And I feel terrible for cheating on Kel.
Daniel claims that Naomi was the one pressuring him to buy lube when he didn't want to have sex, to show him where there is a sex shop nearby. You know, I think God did the right thing by preventing her from having kids and making fluids, so she can abstain from using her broken vagina. But it is so stupid that someone like Daniel is thinking, oh boy, broken vagina that needs money to be used like a coin-operated kiddie ride. Sign me up. What the hell does she have that makes her worth that much effort? I really want to know. And yep, Naomi was literally married when she was frolicking through Las Vegas with Daniel. And who knows if they're divorced now. So when she was talking about being cheated on and how that was so terrible, she was literally cheating on her husband while crying. I don't know anything about this Kel character, but so far he seems to be the one with the worst situation. Since if he did get divorced, then there goes half of his shit. Everybody in the situation. Just one dumb decision after another. And Daniel went to go see his dad when he has 2 moms. We had to state this like that's normal. This is your life on wokeness, people. You want to be the next fantasy news maestro? Well, look at this. You'll need to take drugs, cheat on your gal, get into lawsuits, have dyslexia, all of this. Have 2 moms, all of that. Apparently, you can't be a normal fucking person and be this fantasy news guy. But now that I think of it, that sort of makes sense. Because nobody in their right mind would be obsessed over fantasy nonsense to the point where they make a fantasy news channel. That's something for Redditor mods to do.
There were even instances of Naomi King telling me things along the lines of it's better to ask forgiveness than permission in regards to the fact that because I am bisexual and in a hetero relationship with Kayla, she has told me it's okay for me to seek sexual relations with a man, but not a woman. With Naomi King being non-binary, they were referencing that there's a gray space.
Oh, wait, okay. I'm sorry. I have to collect myself here. So, when he says she, he's referring to Kayla, since he's always using they them pronouns for Naomi. This means Kayla told Daniel directly that since he's bisexual, it's okay for him to take dick in the ass, as long as it's, you know, not a serious dicking. But then Naomi convinced Daniel that she doesn't count as a guy or a girl since she's non-binary. So that's the same as getting fucked in the ass by a BBC. Or at least Kayla should see it that way, or else she's a bigot. You know, there's a really simple thing that they could have done to avoid all of this nonsense. Kayla could have simply said, Daniel, you're with me. It's like that Taylor Swift song, You Belong With Me. There is to be no other sexual partners at all. No dicks and no dames. Just me, Kayla. Because you're with me, Kayla. You're gonna be married, which is what fiancé means. The marriage should be only one man and one woman. Why? Just why? Why would they even dare to toy with the idea that Daniel getting his dick sucked by another dude on the couch was a good idea? That's the perfect question for this entire thing. Just why?
He told Discord he was there, but he was only there to visit his father.
I had been on a couple of Tinder dates while I was visiting my dad, but obviously none of those dates aligned with what was being alleged in these posts.
The remainder of Daniel's defense is about the random Tumblr posts, and this is where everything gets so stupid again. Yeah. As if it couldn't get any more stupid, now we have Daniel contradicting himself. Before, he said there were no sex acts at all during his visit because he was visiting his dad. Obviously, there was no time to smash anyone. Now he says he had several Tinder dates while visiting his dad. Why would you have any Tinder dates during a visit with your dad? Also, might I add that a Tinder date is literally where someone swipes left or right on Tinder, finds a person who matches, then you meet them on a date to go fuck. Very, very specifically, fuck. Tinder dates are the main thing right now where you skip the speed dating and go straight to the speed fucking. You don't even need to hear the person's voice to already decide you'll fuck that person. This means Daniel having sex with someone while at his dad's house is more than possible. But now the only room for doubt was whether or not it was an actual assault. Well, congratulations to us, because Naomi captured the person who made the initial Tumblr allegations all those years ago. What this prostitute from the past said was so stupid in how she phrased everything, I couldn't believe my own ears. But before we get into what this new girl has to say, Naomi has a bone to pick with. Naomi.
I'm going to get to the exact questions that people want to know. 1. Are you accusing Daniel of rape? No.
And then, why are we here? Why all this drama? Why all this crying and telling people you're a victim and that Daniel's dangerous and he's a threat and he'll do it again and he's gonna go across America abusing and raping women from here to Timbuktu? If it's not rape when he sticks his cock in your mouth and jizzes all over you against your will while you're supposedly half asleep, which is so important to mention, then what the hell is any of this? Where was this act on the rape-o-meter?
I never once said Daniel Greene assaulted me. I did not use those words. When I made that video, I was very, very, very careful to only ever refer to what he did to me as pressuring me into things.
Yes, you did. You said that as directly as possible without using his name when talking about how a guy leaving you after having sex is assault. And if the guy lied about being in a relationship to then have sex with you, that is also assault. Then you said that you didn't consent to sexual acts because you were too zooted to respond and you froze up and oh no, I'm like those fainting goats and all tumbly and shit. And somehow none of that is rape or assault? Okay, Naomi, if it's suddenly not rape or sexual assault, then what is it?
Like, I did not mean for that video to be a rape accusation. I did not mean for that video to blow up and have people calling him a rapist and sending that video to the people he works with.
I know it's a bit stale to relate an autistic woman with Chris Chan, but this is Chris Chan level of stupid. Like when he didn't mean to run over that guy who runs the game place. And he hit that guy with his car twice and also accused the guy from the game place of molesting kids. These people have no idea what consequences are. But why would they comprehend consequences? They're feminists. Let's try to take this seriously for a moment. If Naomi didn't mean for this to be a rape accusation, this means she's off the hook for causing the problem? So then if Daniel didn't mean to cause trauma and make Naomi feel so pressured, then that's all he had to say to get off the hook, right?
Because I didn't give anybody trigger warnings, it meant that every single survivor who happened to click on that video was forced to relive their trauma completely without warning.
You know what, Naomi? You're right. The only problem with those videos is that you didn't have a trigger warning. I can't believe I overlooked that.
I have severe PTSD.
I've been skipping over all the times she's said this, but seeing this one on the third video of hers makes me think that she was trying too hard to use this as a crutch. We don't need to hear about your PTSD every 5 seconds. We really don't. But she wants to, because that phrase is like a sorcerer's enchantment, casting a spell, hoping this makes everyone feel bad for her. People like this are heavily abusive, because they try to use this as an excuse for their awful behavior.
What I said was that he pressured me into things. That video wasn't me coming forward about Daniel raping me. That video was me coming forward about a negative experience I had had with him, and that I had ended up speaking to somebody who had allegedly also had a negative experience with him.
Yep, you heard that right. She is now fully backpedaling the entire story. And now the other girl who directly said Daniel Greene raped me is only allegedly claiming that because it's only allegedly happened. For those of you who are unfamiliar with this word, allegedly means a claim with no proof, which is usually used to say things so you're not accused of slander or libel because the word removes a claim of proof. Now she's gonna throw around the word allegedly when before it was certain. The rest of the third part is just filler. She complained about how Daniel had other sugar babies, more of your money being wasted if I may say. She talks about ordering a pizza for her ancestors. Okay, pizza's cool, don't care. And she tries to say could was just a maybe and not a yes. No it's not. If I said could I use your phone and somebody handed it to me and said you could, then there is no legal ground to go, but I didn't give them permission to use my phone. The judge would just slap you upside the head. With that useless garbage out of the way, she has the other girl with her to explain what happened. But remember, that girl doesn't know what she's talking about, since it's just allegedly. Before the discussion, Naomi makes the written claim that the girl who made the allegations on Tumblr was not medicine, which Daniel claimed in his response, and now there are 4 women who have accused him of rape? Let's count them off for a second. Naomi, Madison, Tumblr girl, and now a 4th mystery woman? If Naomi was telling the truth for a single second, I would probably be intrigued. But since she's been lying this whole time and we have to yet see another peep from this 4th woman, I'm at the point where I just don't care. So, sorry mysterious 4th woman who doesn't exist. If Daniel pulled a Clockwork Orange on you, I just don't give a dilly darn.
We went to UMW college together. We were both in the same year. This was 2013, and we both graduated 2017.
Oh my god, Naomi is really trying to cover her tracks now. Everywhere is the word allegedly. That lawyer must have really given her a stern talking to. Like trying to get a kid to get their fingers out of their mouth when they're learning how to wipe. It's actually a lot tougher than you think.
We started hooking up, and we were kind of in the same, like, friends group, friends with benefits thing, like adjacent circles.
UMW is a college in Virginia, and Daniel said he was living in Ireland. If somehow Daniel was going to this university for 5 years, and then he went to Ireland during his college years, then went back to his dad's house, then went back to Virginia to finish up college, that would technically check out, but in such a messy way. Now I'm more interested in this Ireland business. Especially since for the last parts of the year he was in Virginia where this chick said they first met. But that would mean he carried this broad from Virginia to Tennessee just to fuck in his dad's house. Was this before he had the habit of using hotels?
So yeah, when the first time we were just in my dorm room.
Everyone in this group is fucking each other in college, reading fantasy books, learning about communication degrees, and years later, all of these people ended up accusing each other of rape. That is absolutely terrifying. I can only imagine how many of these fuck groups are going around in college, with everyone ready to tug on that noose after taking in the caboose.
I did want to have sex, so fine, whatever, but it was surprising.
The first time? Again, with multiple times getting raped across multiple days. Lady, if you were being raped and Daniel's so dangerous, then why did you go to his house all the way in Tennessee? That's an extremely long bus ride to be with a predator. Not even the predators on To Catch a Predator go on that long of a trip.
Wow, actually, thank you so much for asking. The choking and biting, I wasn't okay with. And the next time we had sex, he choked me and bit me again.
Okay.
How is it the first time being attacked if you wanted it? This bitch is a terrible storyteller. She already lost the plot after barely a paragraph. Well, now you know how we feel when we say no teeth.
There was one time in the winter that I was at, he was, I believe, living in Silver Spring, Maryland. My ride, ditched me, the person that I was with, and I called him and I asked him if he could pick me up, and he did, which I did appreciate. But then when he was driving me back to my house, he pressured me into giving him roadhead to wake him up on the drive. I was in a relationship. I didn't really feel good about it, but I didn't really feel like I could say no because I was like, you are going out of your way for me. Yeah. He pulled over to the side of the road and he got a really intense expression on his face and asked if I was on birth control. And I was like, no, I'm not. And I think otherwise he would have come inside of me, but as it was, he just jerked off onto me.
What the fuck is that story? So they went to college in Virginia, but now all of a sudden they're in Maryland, and Daniel's also there. They're all 19. Daniel has a car at this age, which means his parents are loaded and he's a spoiled brat. She calls Daniel to pick her up instead of her own boyfriend, since she says she was in a relationship. And then Daniel asks for her to use her mouth, but then he stops the car and fucks her in the car. And she accepted it because it was a case of ass, gas, or grass, and she was all out of grass. This is not rape. This is her being a whore. I don't know where Daniel finds such easy, slutty bitches, but I guess they're abundant at UMW. Virginia really is a state for lovers.
There was one point, he was just really pressuring, and I was like, okay, fine. As an alternative, I let him spank me and use a vibrator on me, and he used it so hard I bled.
What the fuck?
Which has never happened before or since. It was not a big vibrator.
Oh my god.
But that was unpleasant.
So here we go, the big reveal. Daniel's evil act of leaving a girl bleeding on the floor at his father's house. And the cause was her uterus having a spasm after an orgasm with a vibrator. This is something women get used to over time, which causes the cramp to become less frequent, which is why she never had this happen again. Or she simply never had a real orgasm again. But essentially, her entire argument of being violently raped results in her admitting that she simply had a few spots of blood from her pelvic floor moving around, which is something the body does. This mystery girl is so stupid, she just explained to all of Naomi's fans that Daniel had normal sexual encounters with her several times over the course of years. And what makes it worse is that she keeps going.
It's one of those things where at the time you're like, oh geez, well, he really did go out of his way to pick me up, and I don't have a lot of options, and oh boy, I guess I can, so.
You know what's odd about this whole thing? I've asked plenty of my friends for rides, and I've had to suck 0 cocks. I mean, maybe I'm just really good at negotiating after reading The Art of the Deal, because Trump actually wrote a chapter about how you're supposed to haggle over this kind of thing, down to whether or not the bottle should be cradled. Just kidding. That never happened because there's no reason for this. She's like, I had no options. You had the option to not suck dick to get to home with 0 cum on you. She could have easily said no, then have Daniel kick her out of the car angrily, and then have the whole thing be a reveal of how Daniel's an evil womanizer. And that's how we know she's lying, because she's not approaching any of this in that way, even though she's yet another retarded feminist. If I was a feminist and I knew some guy was a serial rapist who had me bleeding out and he was forcing me to prostitute myself, I wouldn't hang out with that guy, and I certainly wouldn't have him as a friend. Due to the reality that this gutter slut decided to hang out with Daniel all throughout college, in several different states, that means she's lying about the entire framing. Logic is your friend, but it is the enemy to these evil idiots. All because Daniel tried to cheat on his fiancée with some insane interloper. All this drama turned his life into a living hell. The life of Kayla became a living hell that she now feels trapped in, and miraculously will stay with Daniel for the time being, despite the boos and hisses she's received for her decision. Again, I don't enjoy her decision either, but I understand why she would do it. Naomi deleted her channel, ridding the World Wide Web of her stupidity, at least from that username, until we see her revive like a tumor that she is. In an Instagram post, Naomi announced that she was going into an emergency mental health facility. Whatever that is, we can only hope that she actually goes there and stays there for the rest of her life. Daniel's online reputation was completely destroyed. Even though he was innocent of the accusations, outside of being a cheater and a fuckboy, his main contact to the publishing industry, Brandon Sanderson, cut ties with Daniel and unfollowed him on everything, with little word of whether or not he's apologized for reacting or if he will return to working with Daniel on anything. Booktubers like Murphy Napier released an apology video, revealing she felt a knee-jerk reaction from the concept of sexual assault, due to her own history of being sexually assaulted in the past. In fact, there were a lot of author-tubers and booktubers who either released a video condemning Daniel to then follow up with an apology, once Daniel released his debunking video on how Naomi is horribly contradictory and wrong if you simply watch the video. For some reason, people will see a title about sexual assault, see a woman crying, and then instantly believe her, even if she's insane and lying about everything. We're in a time where people will not even watch the content they're reacting to, and just go with the flow, no matter how full of shit that flow is. Cancel culture is less about finding justice or the truth, and simply staying in the hate mob where it's safe, hoping you're not the next one to have the mob after you. With his friends leaving and possible ties to actual publishers severed, Daniel also suffered from a loss of about 40,000 subscribers. However, during this drama, his view count skyrocketed, to then tank during a dry spell where he wasn't coming out with anything, to where his content is now just him talking about that Wheel of Time show that brings in about 50k views each, so hey, whatever works for you. I'm sure Daniel's channel will return to its previous growth cycles and it will peak out again until he finds another famous author to latch onto. I'm sure he'll keep on writing more books with underwhelming reviews. And on that note, some people have claimed that Daniel was review bombed when this drama began. I checked on Amazon and Goodreads and I didn't see any new reviews doing such a thing. So I'm not sure what these people were referring to. If anything, some were marked as fake reviews on Goodreads and were removed ever since I checked about a month after Daniel's second response. Before I end this video, I wanted to go over the concept of consent, so that you, the viewer, can understand how consent is not only a flawed concept, but also the main reason all of this could have been avoided if consent itself was ignored for something that truly mattered. The drama is done, but the true lesson is about to begin. The question of consent is actually rather recent, popping up in both ethical and political philosophy during the advent of liberalism, with the belief or focus about the individual. Age of consent was a discussion around the 16th century prior to that. but that was more about when children are legally capable of making decisions rather than treating them as individuals who have free will. If, theoretically, one is an individual with free will, then this individual has the right to abstain from activities they don't want to do, which then creates a freedom, which then prevents the government from removing this freedom by adding a liberty, hence liberalism, coming from the Latin word liber, meaning free man, and liberty, which also comes from the word liber. As we became more liberal, the question of consent became more popular, with most of it revolving around the right to refuse unlawful activity, especially after slavery was made illegal across the globe. Well, at least most of it. Then, shortly after slavery was abolished, feminists started to pop up and determined it was their time to nag till the cows came home. First wave feminism demanded equality between men and women when it came to legal matters, specifically house ownership, inheritance, and voting. Although feminists don't want to include the need to be drafted with the right to vote, so already they wanted special treatment. All the benefits with none of the responsibility. Later on, we gained the second wave of feminism concerning sexual liberation. The freedom to have sex with whoever and whatever a woman wants because, well, they wanted to be prostitutes but didn't want to be shamed for it. The question of consent always dwindles down to whether or not society should allow people to harm themselves, with the more libertine crowd demanding the hedonistic route of pure self-destruction under the assumption of enjoyment or pleasure. These party animals who are always doing drugs, having casual sex, prostituting themselves, giving in to their addictions, demanding everyone caters to mental disorders, being homeless and acting like hippies, all of these people are the opposite of what makes a functional society. In fact, a functional society is when the majority of people do the exact opposite of these things, which, unfortunately, is becoming a shrinking number as time goes on. In places like Europe, we have reports of the most happiness, but now they have the lowest birth rates, which was measured at about half of what it would take to keep the continent alive for the near future. Same thing is going on in South Korea and Japan, and especially in the US. It seems that anywhere this liberal individualist concept starts to become the majority, it also becomes the most self-destructive area that removes any chances for a future. All because of radical feminism being a toxin in how the family unit operates. This idea of consent to be a slut has now become the idea that consent can be removed whenever the woman wants to remove it, even if it's years later, which is how someone like Neil Gaiman was cancelled to begin with. He had consensual horseplay in the bathtub with several women, and once he had money and fame, these women wanted to take that away from him and get money for themselves, which will always be a snowball effect when there are multiple women involved with a sexual degenerate. Guys are biologically designed to have sex with a bunch of different women and then leave, with society and survival training men to become the fathers who advance society for the better. We aren't functional fathers for the individual, but rather for the society at large, which is a responsibility that men are never thanked for, but are always expected to do such a job that goes against both individualism and our own biology. I would say the same goes for when a woman is a good mother, which is rare to find as well. A woman like Naomi is what we get when a prehistoric female troglodyte realizes that they can use their vagina to get mammoth blubber on the daily. Males like Daniel Greene are aplenty, and always plenty stupid when it comes to the sexual stock market. If he wanted a crazy woman, there's more than an abundance of crazy. If he wants a brown girl, there are tons of brown girls out there. If he wants one with breast or ass or a weird looking nose, the sky's the limit. Both of these idiots are so hell-bent focused on the idea of consent that they never considered whether or not their actions are a benefit to themselves or society. If anything, Daniel is trapped in his own Freudian downfall, caused by his need to punish himself with an almost religious self-flagellation by going after the worst person he could ever go for, which is fueled by his thrill-seeking cheating ways. This could be tied to anima possession, specifically the Helen stage, but there is something that I am not sure if there's a term coined for it. It was perfectly encapsulated in the 1945 film Scarlet Street, which was about a downfall of the protagonist Christopher. In the movie, he was in a marriage he didn't want to be in, having her be a sexless, ugly, shrewd woman. But then one day, Christopher saves a beautiful woman, Kitty, from her attacker, who is her own abusive boyfriend that was beating her in a drunk stupor. Chris believes Kitty wanted him because she showed the slightest amount of interest in his paintings, but all she wanted to do was sell the paintings and drop them like yesterday's tomatoes. As time goes by, Chris uses his own money, his wife's insurance bonds, and even stealing money from his employer to fund Kitty's exotic lifestyle, all while getting nothing out of it except for the vague idea that he might get with Kitty when Kitty is laughing at Chris the entire time with her boyfriend Johnny. Later on, Chris finds out the ex-husband of his wife was still alive and still legally married, so even though he's all out of money and lost his job, he felt freed and finally asked Kitty for a relationship. This is where she laughs at him, makes fun of him directly after he just destroyed his entire life for the supposed woman of his dreams. This is where Chris grabs an ice pick and, in a fit of pure rage, stabs her in the head. I mention all of this so that you can recognize the way Daniel Greene has ruined his own life with his own false idea of a perfect mistress, wasting his money, drug use, never being sober, voices in his head, destroying relationships that had zero reason to be destroyed. As much as Freud talked about the pleasure principle and how people are more inclined to avoid pain, I feel like there is something in humans, particularly men, where we desire punishment through self-destruction, which swings us back to the Freudian theory of the death drive. It's not that we are consciously aware, but rather unconscious, and something in the brain is ready to destroy the body for some type of drama or a wake-up call, or at the very worst, to actually bring the body to death. The best advice I can give for any of this is that you shouldn't worry about consent nonsense, and you should abstain from relationships with the crazy people who are obsessed with talking about it. Consent clauses and legal matters are always constant online due to how companies need to get consent for using things or selling data or whatever, and, they sell data anyway without consent. We have things like revenge porn and doxing and people being underage and all sorts of crazy discussions when it comes to consent. All of this can be avoided with abstinence and asceticism. Quite literally, the one thing that will solve all these problems is the thing nobody wants to do. Just stop doing things, especially when they're harming you. I mean, really, how likely is it that we're gonna get the next generation of dunderheads to unplug from society, stick to people their own age, and never have sexual relations until they're married? If this was the 1920s, that would be a cinch. But with how we've normalized degeneracy and slutty behavior, none of this will go away anytime soon. The legal system is broken, yet people still pretend it's not. Sims are all over the place, ready to pay for OnlyFans models and sugar babies, and people pretend they're not. And it's not like the government will solve the problem with some type of prohibition, because that's never solved the problem. All of these problems stem from how people are trying too hard to hide from reality, instead of accepting reality for what it truly is. These people want to have some kind of reputation or lifestyle that isn't the real them, and so they take drugs. The sugar baby wants to enjoy luxuries she's never worked for, and so she sells her body. Instead of knowing their place and having the man above the woman, the hopeless liberal socialist demands equality, only to have the man become enslaved by the woman, completely removing any equality because there was none to begin with. This is why consent is never the true issue, but rather we should focus on the betterment of society and the human race itself, with the ability to separate ourselves from animals. A good way to provide whether or not consent is important is the house fire example. If your house is on fire within a crowded area, ready to spread to others, then should the fire department stop trying to put it out when you say you don't consent to dousing the flame? When we say something like rape or sexual assault is wrong, it's less about consenting to the act and more about whether or not the act makes society better, and makes us more civilized. Obviously, if everyone was raping and sexually assaulting all over the place, there would be a highly traumatized and low-trust society that would be ready to attack instead of get along. Unwanted children would be made by people who are not ready to have kids, with these kids never ready to have kids, and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, because so many progressives have to be ridiculous, this is why we can't have nice things. It would be nice if all we had to do was talk about consent and then sex was a peaceful pastime. But because of a bunch of feminist socialist wackadoos, we're supposed to accept slutty behavior that is always prime and ready to call anyone a rapist when they smell the money or want to destroy a life. If anything, I hope the legal system fixes itself and makes it more, sane. Until then, please, keep your dick in your pants. Stop being a male feminist fuckboy. Stop doing drugs. Stop enabling prostitution. Stop destroying your lives. Just stop it. I know these people won't actually stop, but I hope the words are casted out and repeated like a sorcerer's enchantment, doing something that weakens this critical theory curse upon us. Speaking of magic, I hope the only other content I make on Daniel is the continuation of analyzing his books and ripping them a new one, with a third one being released since the last time I've talked about him. Because I've started to make videos again, expect more from me, where I dissect each page and explain why they're utter dog shit. I guess if there ever is a reveal of this drama, or a new mistress, I'll cover it. And I feel like some unrelated drama will happen with them. The problem with mentally unstable people is that they are always going to surround themselves with one drama or another, whether he's the cause of it or not. And if anything, I prefer making fun of his fictional failures. Let's hope the future holds more videos about his crazy books, rather than his encounters with crazy broads. Till next time.